Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm Lushke Styles, and in today's tutorial I'll be sharing with you all the detailed process from the drafting to the cutting and the sewing of this beautiful gown which you see right here on your screen. So it's a popular style from a popular brand on Instagram, but at the back of mine I actually didn't fix a zipper. I laced it instead, as you can see on the picture at the left side of your screen. So if this really sounds like something you're really interested in learning how to do, please continue watching. So it's a 100% detailed tutorial and you will never regret watching this tutorial. So without much ado, I'll just get started with what we have for today. So right here I have all my working tools. So I have my ruler, my stretch ruler, my curved rule, my scissors and my marker and my tape. So this first fabric I have here is a lining. It's a cotton lining which is black in color, and this second one I have right here is a net and is about 1 yard. So this fabric which I'll be using in the making of this dress is about 3 yards, and it's also called a cotton fabric. But this my cotton fabric is not like the thick one, it's the normal one that has this normal volume of fabric. So the next one I have right here is this button, and most people call it cloth cover button, and I have 5 of these. I had 6 earlier but I lost one, so now I have 5. So I went ahead behind the camera to draft these basic bodies from my shoulder up to my hip length, but I'll be explaining what all of these lines right here stand for. So the first line, which I labeled my shoulder line, I placed my tape there and I got all these lines ranging from my underbust to my half length or my waistline to my hip line. So after that I'll come to my shoulder line and I'm going to mark my neck width of 3 inches, which is not really too necessarily important, but I just had to do that. So now I know where my neck width stop. I'm just going to go up from my shoulder line by half of an inch and slant it to the other part of my shoulder for my shoulder slants. So now from my shoulder line I'm going to come down by the desired inches of my neck depth of 6 inches. So that was why I told you that first neck depth around neckline I marked wasn't too necessary, right? Now from that my armhole I went in by 1 inch and quarter. 1 inch and quarter. So when you mark 1 inch, just mark the 2 lines, that is quarter. So I now connected it to that point where my neck width stopped. So I'm going to cancel out this other one which is not necessary and needed. So after that now I'll come to my underbust line and divide my nipple to nipple points into 2. I mark 3.5 on my underbust line. Then on that 6 inches line I came down by from my shoulder. I went in from the center of my paper by 3/4 of an inch. That is, if you mark half of an inch you count 2 extra lines and you get quarter. So altogether is 3/4. So I extended that my nipple to nipple points to my chest line. Now I'm creating a curve and I connected that 3/4 inches all the way down to this my nipple to nipple points on my underbust. Now I'm also going to connect from this my yoke where it stopped, from that upper part all the way to this my underbust, just like this. So place your ruler very well and go ahead and connect this way. I believe it's simple, right? So the next thing now I'm going to move over to my half length, or you can say my waistline, and I'm going to divide my waist circumference by 4. So what I had is 7 3/4. All right, so I marked it right there. Then I'm going to connect from my chest line down to my waistline after getting the quarter of my bust circumference, which is 9.5 inches. So having done this, now I connected this from my chest line to my waistline. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect from my waistline down to my hip line of 24 inches. That is, taking the measurement from my shoulder to my hip length is 24 inches. So right now I added stitching or sewing allowance, and I added just 1 inch because that is normally what I work with, and I stopped exactly on the half length. I didn't add the stitching or sewing allowance up to my hip length, so I stopped exactly on the half length. Okay, so now I'm done with the drafting of the front part of this dress. I'll go ahead and cut out the basque area. I'll also cut out for the armhole. Then when I get to that 6 inches, which is my neck depth, I will now separate these 2 pieces and also cut out for my yoke. Okay, so when I do that, now I'm going to keep that aside. So I'm not going to touch the bust area yet, because I want to use this particular pattern to draft that for the back part of this our dress. So I'm just going to fold that back area in, and from there now is my half length. Okay, so I'll get my piece of paper, another one, and I'm sorry, my pattern paper, and I'm going to place this drafted piece on a clean part of this my pattern paper, and I'm just going to cut out exactly the way it is, the size, the upper part, and also the base. So having cut this out now, I'll just label it my back so that I can know the part that is the upper part and the lower part. So now I'm going to subtract 2 inches from the back part of this my pattern paper, because we'll be fixing or attaching loops to this. Okay, so I'm just subtracting 2 inches, but if you want this to be properly snatched on you, go ahead to subtract from 3 inches and above. Okay, if you subtract 2 inches, it's not really going to be too tight on, like too snatched. Let me just use the word too snatched. Okay, so I just subtracted 2 inches from mine. I don't want it extremely snatched. Okay, so I'll be also working with this upper yoke for my back dress. Okay, so for the front and the back dress, we'll make use of this particular yoke right here. So after that, now I went ahead to finish up my front dress. So I'm now going to cut off the cup area, which is this part. So I'm now going to cut it out, as you can see right here. So I now label this one my front. So after that, now this cup area, I'm going to actually slash and spread. So I actually gave this marked 1.5 inches, and I wrote the line across. I marked 1.5 inches again, and I marked a straight line across this way. So after that, I'm going to label these 1, 2, and 3 before I go ahead to separate all these pieces or to slash. Okay, so I'm separating them entirely. Okay, so when I must have done this, I'll now get another piece of pattern paper, and I'll just start by rolling a line at under my pattern paper, just this way. So I'm going to ensure that this line all aligned on this other line I drew on this other pattern paper. Okay, so I'm going to spread by 1.5 inches. So I placed my number 1 paper and I measured 1.5 inches and made a mark right there and place the second one. So I'll do it and also get to the third one, and in between all these spaces, what I have right here is 1.5 inches, as you can see right here. So now, having done that, now I'll go ahead to connect the base of this my cup before I go ahead now to cut out. So by the time I cut out, I'm going to keep that aside because I'm done drafting, and the next thing now is to cut on my fabric. So while cutting, please remember you are actually going to fold your fabric into 2 before you go ahead to cut. So now for this front part, at the back area and at the top parts, I'm going to give stitching allowance ranging from 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch. So I cut out for the back, for the yoke, for the bust area, and for this cup parts, you are meant to also cut out on your net. So now I want to draft that for my back, and you know that this our gown, I actually fixed a modesty panel to that. So all I did was to measure the length of my back dress and subtracted 1 inch from that. So for the length of this piece I have right here on fold is 10 inches, and the wideness is 8 inches on fold. Okay, so which I went ahead to cut out. So I also went ahead to duplicate my cup area and my yoke on a net as well. So after cutting, guys, this is all I have. So you cut out a rope that you fold into 2 for our loops. So you can see that I added stitching allowance all around this piece, aside the sides, which I already added 1 inch for our sewing or stitching allowance. Now I'm going to start removing all these pins so that I can start joining all my pieces together. So I also cut out some my lining piece as well. Please don't forget that, okay? So right now this is the my actual fabric. I'll place it right sides facing each other with my lining piece because I want to start joining right now. So at this top part I'm going to join using half of an inch, and the sides I'll just join using just quarter of an inch. I will not join the back area, okay? So now for my cup part of my gown, I'll separate this way. So the right side is facing the camera, and I'm just going to place my net on top of it, sorry, my lace on top of it this way, and I'm just going to arrange it properly. After that I will now use my gather stitch to stitch this all around, okay? So having done this, now this is what I have. I actually stitched the sides using quarter of an inch and that middle top part using half of an inch, and I also joined my net and my actual fabric using my gather stitch all around. So now I'm going to fold in this way, okay? So I'm going to fold in this way. I'll measure about 1 inch and fold in. So I'll fold in and also make sure that I create a channel where my elastic can pass through. So when you fold in about 1 inch, you fold in, you just try to get rid of the rough edges, okay? Then you now stitch. So that is the illustration I'm trying to give right here. I believe that we are all familiar with what I'm trying to say right here, okay? So when you fold twice, make sure everything you fold in is about 1 inch and there is this channel to accommodate your elastic, okay? Just as you can see right here. So by the time you fold this in, you're going to run a stitch like this at the tip right there, and then you now use your safety pin to fix your elastic through that channel which you already created for our elastic. So pass it through, it come out from the other side, and you see the effect you have on this cup part of your dress. So I'm going to do that for the both part of my cup, and after that I'll get the yoke part of this my gown, which is also serving as the, it's not the sleeve but it's just the yoke part, right? So I'll separate them from the lace which I have, and right sides facing each other I'm going to place my net and my actual fabric, and I'm going to join using quarter of an inch because while stitching, sorry, while cutting on my fabric I left sewing allowance, okay? So now I've gone ahead to fix my elastic for the cup part of my dress. So this is what I have. It's still looking flat. So by the time I drag those gather stitch which I already ran on my cup part, is going to look puffed or puffy. I also did the same thing for my yoke. So you can see there are 4 in total, 2 for the front and 2 for the back dress. So now this is what I have done so far. So I'm going to pull on this my gather stitch. So when you stitch, even if you have your stitches inside, just use your pin to bring it up a bit. You now pull just the same way I'm doing right here. So when you are pulling, just ensure that the gather's effect is like below, underneath the cup area, okay? So I'll still do it right here on the video and you understand everything I'm doing right here. So now having done that, now I got the front part of my gown. So from the armhole area on that side, I'm just going to come down by 3/4 of an inch. So meaning that when I'm joining this my cup to this part of my dress, I'm not going to start from the upper part, from that my armhole side. I'm going to start from that half of an inch which I just marked with my chalk. So I also went ahead to also pull this to get this little gathers effect, and make sure that the gathers effect is seated directly under your cup area. So I'm going to start from that chalk mark I made right there to pin. As you can see, I'm doing right here. So make sure you pin this one side. I think I pinned twice or 2-3 times here. Then I moved to pin for the other side, just this way. You see what I'm doing? So pin the right sides to each other. So by the time you pin the sides first, you have the opportunity to actually pull the gathers so that I can gather very well under your cup, okay? So you can see now I have this room now to gather as much as I can, but please just know that your actual fabric is not meant to be gathered. Okay, so when I did this, you can see what I have right here. It wasn't really straight. I mean, for my actual fabric, I had to redo this. Okay, your actual fabric is not meant to be gathered for any reason. The only gathered effect you need is on your cup area. Okay, so I'm also going to do the same thing for the two parts of my cup, and by the time I do that, I'll go ahead now and get my modesty panel. So I'm going to fold it into two, so you can go ahead and iron and interface into the wrong side before you start stitching your modesty panel, but I didn't see the need to. Your interfacing just makes it firm and more stable. So I'm going to stitch all around using just 1/2 inch and leave one side where I'll turn up from for a later stitch. So this is what I have after stitching. This is my modesty panel. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to start fixing our loops. So just like I told you earlier, this rope right here, cut out about 1 inch wide, stitch using 1/4 inch and turn it out entirely. This is what you have. So now I'm cutting 2 inches of this, which I'll be using as my loop. So this is 2 inches long. This piece you're seeing right here is 2 inches long, which I'm going to cut out now. So this is the back part of my dress, and this is the part where I cut off 2 inches from for our lacing, right? So from the top part, I marked 1 inch, which is that second line or that second mark right there. So you fold your loops into two, more like in an X, the alphabet X form. Then I'm now going to pin it on that second chalk mark I have right there. From the top part of this my back dress to that point is 1 inch. So you're going to measure the distance you want to have between your loops. So fold it in an X form. All right, I'm now placing it right there. So I'm placing all this on the right side of my fabric. So you place it and pin and ensure that the rough part of your loops is actually facing the rough part of your fabric, just the same one there right here. So the spaces I have in between these my loops is 1.5 inches, and for each side of my back dress I had 5 loops I fixed to that. Okay, so I have done this to the end, and I'm going to get my modesty panel now. I'm going to use it to cover up this my loop, as you can see. So while you're covering it up, make sure that it doesn't get to the top part of your dress and the lower part. So I have 1 inch spaces in between the upper part and the lower part, which I'll still measure out right here. So the width of this my modesty panel have come to 8 inches and the length have come to 9 inches. So I'm going to pin this my modesty panel and measure the spaces I have at the top part and the lower part, or the base of my dress, and I had just 1 inch. So your modesty panel is not meant to get to the upper part of your dress and at the lower part as well. So I pinned this my modesty panel to this my dress right now, and the next is to get my yoke. So I'm going to fix it as well, because I'll be turning everything up entirely with my lining piece. So you're going to fix this now from that part on the armhole, just that part seated on top. Okay, so you are going to make sure that the net or the lace part of your yoke is on top of your modesty panel. Okay, so by the time you stitch, if you raise it up, the net will come on top, and that slanted part will be like at the center back. Okay, so when I pinned this, I also went ahead to use my lining piece to cover this up. So right now I'm going to stitch the upper part of this my lining, and also this part where I fixed or attached my loops. So I'm going to stitch using just 1/2 inch for the upper part right here, 1/2 inch. I'm not going to touch the base. Okay, so I'll take this aside, and I'm also going to repeat the same process for the other side back, which I have right here. So the remnant of my loops is 5 inches. I went ahead to repeat exactly the same thing I did right here, but I'm not fixing a modesty panel because our modesty panel is usually at one side of the back dress. Okay, so for the yoke as well, I went ahead to also face it down this way. I'll pin it. Make sure that you start pinning it from exactly that point on your armhole. So I will now use my lining piece to cover this up. So I also stitch the upper part and also stitch that part where I fix my loop using just a niche. I'm not touching the base, and I'm also not touching the sides and the armhole. So after stitching, guys, this is what I have. I went ahead to iron this out properly. You can see how nice this is looking already. So, and this is neat as well. So our sleeve and everything is perfectly, sorry, not sleeve, our yoke is perfectly fixed to the back part, and this is it. So you can see how nice this modesty panel is looking. So go ahead and cut out a very long rope for your lacing. Okay, so after that, now this is the front part of my dress, which I've gone ahead to stitch the cup area to the place where it's supposed to be stitched, as you can see right here. So the next thing now is to fix my yoke to this my dress. So to fix this yoke, you have to come to this upper part, which is higher on this part, on the cup area. So that piece at the top part there, that is where I'm going to fix it. So I'm going to open it up and place it together with my yoke, and I'll pin. So I'll stitch using half an inch. So after joining, you realize that it's half an inch left at the top part of this your dress. So separate it, because you already have your lining piece. So when you separate it, it's going to be like wide enough for you to stitch your yoke. Okay, so just repeat the same thing I'm doing right here. Even if you don't understand my explanation, everything I'm doing right here is clear enough. Okay, so when you stitch and you raise it up, this is what you're going to have. So I'll go ahead now and cut off this excesses, and I also gave this a nice pressing, which I'll still go ahead to repeat again to make it flatter. So this, now I'm going to start fixing my front dress and my back dress together. So before I proceed, I will join the shoulder area. So just open it up this way, fabric to fabric and lace to lace. You just join using half of an inch, just the same way we did while fixing the yoke to the body of our dress. Okay, so I'm going to join the two shoulders first before I'll move on to join the sides of this my dress. So remember, our stitching allowance is 1 inch, which I'll go ahead now to mark 1 inch all the way to the base of this our dress. So right now is the lower part of this our gown. So the total length of my gown is 44 inches. So I already subtracted 16 inches from that, meaning that the lower part is 22 inches. So it is 81 inches wide and 22 inches long. So at that top part, I'm going to run a gather stitch all through to the end. That was the explanation I was trying to give right there. Okay, so I cut out two different fabrics. Okay, one for the front and one for the back. So for one piece is actually 80 something inches wide. So when I join the front part and the back part of my dress at the sides, this is what I have. So the back part was a bit longer on that half length area, so I went ahead now to trim it off. So please, while joining, don't join your modesty panel, just join the sides alone. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is to fix my sleeve to this my dress. So I'm a bit faster here because I have a detailed tutorial on how to draft and fix your long sleeve pattern to your dress. So I'll be pinning the link to that tutorial in my comment section. So I've gone ahead now to run this gather stitch on this my piece. This is just for the front part of my dress only, and remember I said it's something inches wide. I can't remember the exact inches. So I went ahead to fold it into two, and I notched the middle of this my lower piece of my lower part of my gown. So I got one end of this my piece, and I'm going to pin it together with the side for the front part alone of my gown. So this excesses I have on this piece, which is the lower part of my gown, I'm going to gather it very well on this one part. So this is to achieve the same effect. So because you know, when you are gathering your dress, when you are gathering this piece on your dress, you don't want one side fuller than the other. So that is the essence of the notching, to know the middle. So the excesses you have at the sides, just go ahead and now pull it very well and now stitch it. So I loosened up the sides a little so that this can sit properly. So now I'll just carefully do this and make sure that my gathers equalizes with the size of my fabric right there on my waist. I don't know, but I believe you understand what I'm saying right here, because I've done this countless times on this channel. So now I've gone ahead now to join using just half of an inch for the front alone, for the front part of our dress alone. So this is what I have. So now I'll go over to the back part. So I'll also get the piece which I cut out for the back part of our dress, and I'm simply going to go ahead now to start stitching. So from the sides as well, I'm going to pin the end of this my fabric to the end of this my joining I have with at the side of my dress. Okay, so you can see I got one end and pinned it to the sides of my dress. So while you are pinning this, ensure that you pin like half inch above, like let this lower part of your gown be half inch above or higher than your dress at the back part, just this way. So you see what I'm showing right here. So make sure it's above, because by the time we need to create a channel to fix our elastic. Okay, so make sure that it's half inch or 3/4 of an inch above, depending on the size of elastic you're using. I actually made it of half inch elastic. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stitch that up. So I stitched that up, so you can see what I have right here. Just use half of an inch and stitch it up, but make sure that the lower part of your gown on that part is half inch above the normal length of your back dress, as you can see right here. So after that, go ahead now, I'm folding this part a little bit to get rid of those rough edges, just as you see me doing right here. Okay, so don't stitch on top of your back dress, so just do it this way. I'm doing it, folding about quarter to quarter inch. Just make a very neat stitch right there, and run a straight stitch across all the way to the other side of your dress. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and do this after carefully folding this in and pinning. And after that, this is what I have. So you can see it's looking neat already. So I'm going to get my elastic. This is my elastic right here and my safety pin. I'll pin this and I'll start fixing this my elastic from one side of my gown, because automatically a channel has been created. So I'll start fixing it from one side of my gown. I'll pull this through till I get to the other side of my back dress. Okay, so that is it. So when you are pulling, do ensure that you don't pull too much, so that the dress can also fit and pass your hips, because the first time I pulled this, it was too tight that I couldn't cross my hips. So try to be calculative while doing this. Okay, so when it comes out at one end, use your pin and hold it down and secure it right there on your sewing machine, as I've shown you right here. So guys, this is what I have. So I'm going to secure both ends on my sewing machine, and I'll come and show you all. So I've gone ahead now to do this, and you can see what I have right here. So now the next thing is for me to now join the sides. So I flipped it to the back part, and I'm going to complete the joinings I have on the side using 1 inch from the upper part to the lower part. So I cut out this rope, which I'm going to fix at the middle or the center of this my dress, and stitch it right there. So guys, this is what I have. I'm done joining the sides, fixing the sleeve and that rope at the center of this our dress. So I also cut out a long piece of fabric and I folded it twice to get my rope for my loops. So the next is to fix your button and also to fix or lace this. So you can see our modesty panel is properly covered. So this modesty panel is actually a matter of choice. If you feel that you don't want to add it, no problem. Just because maybe you once in a while I'll be wearing this to church, so I had to fix this modesty panel so that my back doesn't show while in church. Okay, so now to fix your button, you can start marking 3 inches from the top part of your dress this way. If you fix your button, you mark 3 inches from where your button was fixed and fix the next one. So I did all of this, and at the end of the day, this is what I have. So I hope you found this tutorial really helpful. Thank you so much for watching. And the person that laced this my gown at this point was actually a child, so it wasn't properly laced, but make sure that yours is properly laced. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I love you all, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.